Alright everybody, welcome to another episode of the Saint Mort Show. I am sitting here with Andrew from Five Iron Frenzy.
Hello.
As most of the listeners know, Five Iron is probably one of my favorite bands of all time, if not my favorite band of all time.
You need to get more music in your music catalog, I would say, if that's the case.
It's you guys, and then previous guest Harley Poe / Calbretto 13, Joe.
I don't know any of those bands.
Oh man, missing out.
But I would venture to say they're probably better than us.
Calbretto was kind of an interesting. It was.
I remember Calbretto.
Yeah, it's Joe from Calbretto's new bands, where it's all songs about horror movies. It's all like it sounds like the Cramps, but folky Cramps.
Yeah, I was in a horror punk band after Five Iron broke up.
Which band was that?
BF Thunder.
It sounds like the name of a horror punk band.
Yeah, I'll let you decide what the BF stands for. It's called BF Thunder. We had a song called "Be Eating You." So I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Jeepers Creepers.
Yes.
But that's his license plate. "Be Eating You."
Oh, I didn't even pay that much attention.
And
to that.
It's all about that movie. And then let's see, we had a song about called "Witching Hour" about the exorcism of Emily Rose. Yeah. We did a song about that, and I'm a big horror movie fan.
Yeah,
I'm nuts about horror movies.
The other show I host is a horror movie based.
So have you heard of a band called Calabrese?
Yes, my friend actually just sent me Calabrese's stuff because he's like, I can't believe you never heard this band.
Yeah, those guys are kind of Jimmy's kind of a friend of mine because they used to play with my old band.
Yeah.
Whenever they'd come to Denver, we'd usually do a show together. They were great. Like they're
really
great.
fucking good.
Yeah, they're really good band.
It's crazy how tight they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's interesting because I remember
it's actually pronounced Calabrese. They're Italian, so.
I remember
I was corrected right away when they came in.
Your whole life had been a lie up until that.
Yeah. But I got into them right before Traveling Vampire Show came out. So right after 13 Halloweens came out.
That's the one I've heard, 13 Halloweens.
Yeah, I got into them right after that album came out, and then I was in that band. Big Fucking Thunder, and I'm sorry. Am I allowed to?
Oh, you can curse.
All right.
Go crazy.
Just to I'm the band atheist, so
that's fine.
I do whatever the hell I want. But I played I played in this old horror punk band, and we had heard about them, and we were like, dude, come up to Denver and we'll do a little mini tour. And they came up and we did like 3 shows. We did a Wax Trax show. And it was actually in the record shop.
Yeah.
Wax Trax is one of the record shops in Denver. It's not the Wax Trax, but it's called Wax Trax.
Okay.
So we did a show in a record shop, and then we did a show in a little club in Fort Collins, and then another show in Denver. So we did 3 shows, and it all had great turnouts, and those guys are like super cool, Jimmy's the one I talk to the most. I don't really know Bobby or Davey.
Which is I feel like that's whenever I meet bands or when I would book shows and I would book bands, there's always like the one member that you end up becoming like kind of close to, and then like the other guys just kind of remember who
they
you
were
are.
Nice.
Yeah.
They were nice, but
But I feel like you always find like that one guy that you connect with. Where it's like, oh my god, you like that movie too? I didn't know anybody heard of it. Or like, oh, you like that bit? Like, there's always like the one thing that makes you remember each other better.
It's funny because we didn't really connect on the horror movie level. Like,
Which is weird,
it was kind of obvious.
2 horror punk bands that should be like.
Well,
the first
me
thing.
and him personally, we didn't really connect on a horror movie level. It was more of a philosophy level. Me and him.
Nice.
We had similar views and paths in life, and so we talked about stuff. But I guess when you're both in horror punk bands, it's like,
Well, I'm kind of excited that I'm actually getting to talk to you. I was originally supposed to be talking to Dennis and Jeff and possibly Reese, but I think that this is more interesting to me because I'm also a person who went through the stages of like super religious kid and doing all that, and then just kind of in the ether, just kind of being like, I don't know about this anymore.
Yeah, for me, I just like when I grew up, when I was in my teen years, like I was part of a church and we did like street preaching and stuff like that. I mean, it was pretty crazy, And then,
you're one of the original. You're from like the metal days, right? Or were you?
I joined Five Iron before Five Iron was Five Iron.
I'm trying to remember.
It was Exhumator.
I kept wanting to say Vengeance Rising, and that's a totally different band.
Different band. But yeah, their singer became an atheist too. But he's a little more militant than obviously I am. But no, yeah. I mean, and then started touring with Five Iron, and I had all of these, staunch ideals. It was like, so grounded in my religion and my beliefs and stuff. And then I started meeting all these. We were playing with a lot of, we did Ska Against Racism, so we were playing a lot of secular bands, and then playing overseas, meeting all these different people. And I kind of got to a point where I was like, these people don't believe anything close to what I believe, and they're better people than I am. So what does that say about me and what I believe, and especially since I'm so hardcore about it, and I kind of feel like I'm a bad person when I'm around these people. Like I could be a better person, and that sort of was sort of the catalyst for my moving away from religion. But I don't have an axe to grind or anything like that. Well, I just don't particularly believe it anymore. It's just not my thing.
Well, and Joe from Calbretto has the same type of thing going, and
oh, really?
He's been on the podcast too. Oh, Harley Poe is like the most foul-mouthed.
It's crazy because when Calbretto first came out, they wanted to go on tour with us, and we read some of their lyrics, and we're like, "Oh, these guys are a little too on the judgmental side for us." Like some of the lyrics were like,
the story
just seemed like a little bit like old Crucified lyrics,
Well, what
like
the story is behind that from Joe was that the first album, when they were on Tooth and Nail, he was like, we got signed to Tooth and Nail on a bunch of songs that I had written 4 years ago in high school, and by the time we were recording, I'd already started to become an atheist.
Oh, really?
He's like, so as we're recording, I'm already questioning, I don't know about this.
See, now I wish we would have gone on tour with him.
Because you probably would be like, he's a big, him and I ended up talking about horror movies more than the new Harley Poe album last time, but I think that there is that, the thing that makes sense to me about both Five Iron and Calbretto having members that kind of went their own separate ways or had like a change of opinion with religion is that out of all the Christian music, when I was listening to Christian music as a kid, those were the two bands I gravitated towards the most because I felt like you guys didn't ever have this, I don't want to throw any bands under the bus, but a lot of bands had this bullshit you become a Christian and life is just sunshine and roses and everything works out great.
Sunshine, lollipops.
You guys actually had stuff about sometimes your relative dies and you're not there and you fucking hate it for
I think it goes even beyond that. I mean, there's it's the only way that I'm able to be in this band is the fact that the other guys that are Christians in this band are the people that they are.
Yeah.
They're not judgmental, they don't, treat me like a different person or a bad person, or most of them are a lot like me. They've got a similar sense of humor and stuff like that. So, but if I was coming on tour and I was, feeling guilty for doing shots or something like that, I wouldn't last. I'd be like, all right, I'm good for you, go do your thing, but
And I think that's very key. If you're on the road with a group of guys, you can't be like that lone wolf.
And I can't be Christopher Hitchens. You know what I mean? I love Hitch. You know, but he was. There were some things where I was like, people have to be people, and you have to let them come to the conclusions that they come to on their own time, and they may never do that. But as time goes on, more and more people start to realize, we need a change in our social structure.
Yeah, and I think that it comes down to, regardless of religion, fundamentalist anything is always awful.
I wouldn't even call Hitchens a fundamentalist. Yeah. He was very brash in his delivery. He was very much no filter. Yeah. You know what I mean? But then he would say things like, if you want to believe these things, you believe whatever you want. I don't care. Just don't tell me I have to believe it. And that was his biggest hang-up. You hear it a lot when you listen to a lot of his debates and lectures. It comes down to his biggest hang-up is, the way that religion affects legislation and stuff like that. And so I think that's where I'm at. I would say probably more Christian friends than I do friends that are non-believers. But I am firmly an atheist at this point.
Do you remember? I think I know this answer from watching the documentary, but do you remember like the light switch moment, like the biggest light switch moment?
Yeah, I was really drunk during that time. I was just sitting there drinking scotch the whole time, and I thought, it was going to be like 5 or 6 questions, and it ended up being all night. And I was like, I've had like four scotches, and scotch.
You're like, Jesus Christ, I can't remember that far back at this point.
And then like 4 or 5 beers later,
tomorrow.
Yeah, and Reese is holding the camera down here, and I could just see I'm sitting I'm wearing a Calabrese T-shirt in that interview. You didn't notice that?
I haven't watched it recently.
Yeah. And the more like you can tell where I'm at in the interview process, depending on how far I'm leaning to one side.
Well, now I know what I'm watching tonight.
But I do remember the tipping point for me. The thing that it didn't make me an atheist, but I definitely, after that point, I was like, I am definitely not a Christian.
Yeah.
Was 9/11 and the things that
idiots were saying.
Well, I mean, the first thing about 9/11 was that, okay, these people fervently believe as much in what they believe as I do in what I believe.
Yeah.
And they flew planes into buildings and killed innocent people, and I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
And so immediately I started having this, this conflict of ideals where I was like, well, I believe in this strongly, but if I were to follow the Bible to the letter, things like that would be biblically justified, murder and all that stuff, and rape and owning slaves and all that stuff is all condoned in the Bible.
Yeah.
As is in the Quran, killing yourself gives you instant access to paradise. That's kind of a fucked up thing to believe, if you ask me, but I know that the guys in my band don't believe that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying if you're a Christian that's what you believe. I'm just saying
there's people who are so strongly placed in those words as much as they are with their words.
And that was where my conflict started. I was like, okay, where do I draw? Like, what is acceptable, and what do I take literally in this holy book that I have put all of my stock and faith into for my entire life
or so. Yeah.
Where do I find the balance? And so I kind of started, and then like you said, all of the idiots that like Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell and the horrible things they were saying, I was like, I can't be a part of this. This is not something that I feel comfortable espousing at all. And I'd say at that point I was an agnostic, but I was an agnostic that was trying to convince myself that I could believe in being a Christian again. So I went out and I bought all these books, Lewis and Hanegraaff and Josh McDowell, and just trying to convince myself that it was the truth.
Yeah.
And the more I read, the more it didn't add up to me. It's just not gelling still. And so I got to the point where I said, I have to take everything that I know and flush it down the toilet and start over. Right? So I said, the only way that I'm going to come to any sort of conclusion and find any peace in my life on this topic is I have to be completely unbiased. I have to shut all religion out and say I'm nothing right now, and then just start reading all of it. So I started reading Kant, Hume. I read Dawkins' book. I read God Is Not Great. I also went back and read Mere Christianity. Bertrand Russell, Why I'm Not a Christian. That essay was a big one for me. And and so the more I read and broadened my view, the more I was unconvinced of Christianity, but I still was not an atheist. I would have been maybe even not even an agnostic. I would have said I was a deist. I believe in God, but he sort of spun it into either he doesn't exist or he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right. And then I went to college and I studied anthropology, and so I went from history to ancient history. And the more I learned about ancient cultures, Sumerian cultures, Egyptian cultures, and all of the parallels that sort of predated Christ by like thousands of years, and they're almost the exact same character.
It's frightening.
There's so many. There's like almost every culture had a messianic character.
Yeah, I remember being in college, that being so eye-opening when I took a religious studies course.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, I was just like, it's all the exact same story. It's the exact same story with new names.
There's a Noah almost in every culture too. Whether God destroys the earth with water, the gods or God, whatever it is. There's almost so immediately the validity of the Bible just fell apart. I think that to take any sort of religious text and just throw it out the window would be, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Unintelligent.
Because it's still a historical document, whether it's true or not. It's a
not only
baseline of people's growth.
Not only that, but it's also you can sort of track the development of morality through religion.
Yeah.
I think morality can exist without religion, obviously. I feel like I'm a more moral person now than I was when I was a Christian, more accepting of other cultures, people's beliefs, and definitely more tolerant. But you can sort of track morality. I mean, I think that Jesus was a person that existed, but I don't think he was crucified on a cross and rose from the grave 3 days later. He may have been crucified.
Yeah.
But I think that there are things that are attributed to his life that were added on later. Because I mean, it's the earliest of the Gospels. I think is it the Gospel of John?
I think so.
It was written something like 300 years after
he died.
Yeah, after the death of Christ. So it's oral history. I think that. I have a friend of mine who's a Episcopal. He's not a priest yet.
He's like in training or whatever it's called.
But no, he actually has a title, and I can't remember what it is. He'll be so disappointed in me. It was my friend Ken, and really smart guy, and he's very much. I mean, his views are almost identical to mine.
Yeah.
The difference is, he believes in God, but he doesn't take the Bible literally. He takes it as sort of like, well, you got to filter out all of this other stuff.
Yeah. I remember hearing someone break it down. It was actually, if you ever watched the show Community.
Oh, I love it.
The woman who plays the super religious woman.
Yeah.
She's super religious in real life.
Oh,
and she was on, I think she was on Nerdist. It was Nerdist or WTF.
Uh-huh.
And they were asking her to explain, like, well, why do you believe this stuff? How do you? And she basically, her answer I always really liked, was she was like, I don't really think it matters why I believe it. I don't think it matters if you believe it or whatever. She goes, my belief is simply this. I read that book, and if I pay attention to what he's saying in it, his basic message is love everybody. She's like, so whether I'm right or wrong, what's wrong with me believing that I should love everybody?
Right. And my view of Christ, the Christ of the Bible, is similar to, Gandhi and Martin Luther King and
whether they were this mythical creature or not, they were a good person. You should probably listen to some of their advice.
Sure. You find the messages that are applicable today, and you apply them to your life, and, But I don't necessarily think that he was God in the flesh or the Messiah or I obviously don't even believe in God to begin with. So.
Now, does this ever lead to any tension with the rest of the guys in the band? Are they very accepting? And that's awesome.
I like I said, I
wouldn't be here right now.
You have to let people be who they are.
Yeah.
My mom was the first person in my life to teach me tolerance, and she always used to say the same thing. Because I would get so mad about people that didn't believe or whatever when I was younger, and you know, and I thought that, you know, I just want to save people from hell and all this stuff. And she would always tell me the same thing. She'd say, Andy, you have to meet people where they're at and take them for who they are.
Yeah.
And I don't think I understood what she was saying until I grew up and realized, you know, there's so many people out here that are great people.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to sit here and tell. I can't tell these people that are my friends that are going to tell them that they're going to hell because they don't believe, just because, you know, they don't believe that they're better people than I am.
I'll never forget one of the most scarring things I ever heard on like a religious camp. I don't remember if it was Young Life or something like that, but literally they told us to, every person that you see that's not a Christian, pretend that their forehead says going to hell. And I was like, why would you tell that to a group of 12-year-olds? That's so fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, that's an awful thing to tell a group of kids. And, you know, regardless of where my belief structure is right now, that's fucked up, period. Like, you shouldn't tell
if the guys in the band were like that, obviously I would.
You wouldn't be here right now, yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be here if the band was like that. There's no way. I couldn't, you know, be in an environment like that. But then nobody's like that. Nobody. Even the most conservative member of the band, not like that at all. Not judgmental, not mean or angry or...
I know you need to go down and sound check, so we'll try to wrap this up.
Sure.
But is there anything that, like obviously, beyond the fact that you wouldn't be here if they were judgmental people, there's also must still be moments in the songs that hit you on some level, be it like you really like the music, or like, is there any song that's still just like you love playing live because you feel something?
Here's the thing about Five Iron. Even though our earlier stuff is very religious, if you pay attention to our catalog and the lyrical
there's
content,
definitely a shying away from.
I wouldn't say there's a shying away from. Well, yes, from in-your-face stuff, I would agree with, yes, but there's always a sort of a. It's definitely a like an edgy counter
to what else?
To what everything else that was out there. Preachy and make sure you say Jesus and praise you and all this stuff in every song or whatever.
And Reese is writing about Indians killing each other over religious fights.
Religious people. He's writing about religious people killing Native Americans and stuff like that. But the main message I think that Five Iron has is just hope and love.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, like, while I don't believe that God makes every new day new, or, you know, every day new again, you know, like, I still can see, you know, okay, the main message of this song isn't if you believe in God, you know,
it's overcoming.
Here is the condition for having a nice life.
Yeah.
You have to believe in God, and He will make every day new again. No, to me, it's like, you know what, life can get old real fast.
Yeah, it can.
And you get in the mundane, day-to-day, you know, grind of just doing the same thing over and over again. But if you keep things in perspective, you can have joy in your life and peace and hope and love. And, you know, I think that's really, you know, I mean, yes, Reese is a Christian, so he's going to write from his perspective.
Yeah.
But the main message, I think, to Five Iron is just, you know, is basically like hope and love.
I think that's a very accurate depiction of what all those lyrics basically end up being about.
Yeah, I mean, and the band has grown. I mean,
you're definitely not a ska band anymore.
Well, yeah, and we're approaching our 20-year anniversary. We've all grown in 20 years. We've changed, you know, our views and all kinds of different things. You know, I mean, we are all different people now than we were 20 years ago when we first started hanging out together. So, you know, I mean, that's like, just like my mother used to tell me.
Yeah.
You got to accept people for who they are and where they're at.
And I think it says a lot because when I think back, I mean, obviously 20 years is a little bit different age for me than it is for you, but when you still think about, like, how many people do you stay good friends with for 20 years?
Yeah.
Like, that says a lot about the people in this band.
My kids call, you know, all the guys in the band aunts and uncles.
Yeah.
You know? And their spouses, they're all aunts and uncles. You know, they're family. I mean, it's not even like this is my friend who you call. No, they're
I always found it impressive that an 8-piece band, for the most part, has kept the same group of 9 people in it.
Yeah.
Because you look at bands that are three pieces that have different members every 2 albums.
Right. I mean, Keith's not in the band anymore, but I just saw Keith last week. Him and his wife came over and went out. And
I love that Keith leaving just was like a door opening for Scott to come back.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even like, let's find a new person. It was like, well, let's bring someone from before back in.
Well, Scott was the one that suggested. He's like, if Keith doesn't want to do it, then, if he's okay with it, then I'll play bass. And obviously Keith was fine with it.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
It worked out. Yeah.
All right. Well, I will let you get down there and do your sound check.
Hey, thanks a lot.
No problem.
Excellent.